Let me ask you something important. Have you ever thought you were building something real with a woman, only to realize later that the two of you were never on the same page? You showed up consistently. You invested time. You invested energy, maybe even money, attention, emotional effort. And then one day it hit you. She wasn't confused. She wasn't unsure. She wasn't figuring things out. She was simply playing a different game than you were. And here's the part most men don't want to hear. Most women don't lie about their intentions. Men just don't ask the right questions, or worse, they ask them, hear the answers, and ignore what those answers actually mean. These 5 questions I'm about to share with you are not tests. They are not traps. They are not manipulative tricks. You're not trying to catch her in a contradiction. You're trying to see her mindset, because it's not what she answers. It's how she answers, her tone, her framing, what she emphasizes, what she avoids. That's where intentions live. And if you've ever felt used, strung along, or emotionally misaligned, I want you to listen closely. Not emotionally, not defensively, but calmly. Like a man who is deciding where to invest his life. Now let's start with the first question. This one seems innocent, almost too simple, and that's why it works. Question number 1. What does a healthy relationship look like to you? Pay attention here, because this question quietly exposes her entire relationship operating system. You're not listening for a right answer. You're listening for orientation. Is she oriented toward contribution or consumption? Some women answer this question by talking almost exclusively about how a relationship makes them feel. I just want someone who makes me happy. I want peace. I want to feel safe. I want to feel taken care of. Now pause. None of those things are wrong, but notice what's missing. There's no mention of responsibility, no mention of effort, no mention of growth, no mention of communication during conflict. The relationship is framed like a service, something she receives, something that happens to her. That's what I call a consumer mindset. A consumer mindset doesn't ask, how do we build something together? It asks, does this relationship meet my needs right now? And when the answer becomes no, the relationship becomes disposable. Now contrast that with a different kind of answer. A woman with a partner mindset might say something like, a healthy relationship means both people taking responsibility for how they show up. It's about communication, especially when things get uncomfortable. It's about supporting each other's growth, even when it's not convenient. Do you hear the difference? One answer is about feelings. The other is about structure. One is about comfort, the other is about cooperation. And here's the key insight most men miss. Women don't suddenly change their relationship mindset once they commit. They bring it with them. If she defines a healthy relationship purely by how she feels, then when feelings fluctuate, and they always do, the relationship feels unhealthy to her. And she won't fight to fix it. She'll look for a new experience. This is why so many men say, everything was great at the beginning. Of course it was. The beginning is where consumer mindsets thrive. Now, before you jump to conclusions, let me be clear. This is not about judging her. This is about alignment. A consumer mindset is not evil. It's just incompatible with long-term partnership. And the goal here is clarity, not control. Now let's move to question number 2. This one is even more revealing. What ended your last serious relationship? This question exposes accountability. And accountability predicts behavior better than attraction ever will. When she answers this, listen very carefully to how responsibility is distributed. Some women answer like this. He was emotionally unavailable. He didn't appreciate me. He just couldn't communicate. He messed everything up. Again, pause. Maybe he did. But notice something important. In these answers, she is a passive character. Things happened to her. She reacted. She endured. There is no self-reflection. No, here's what I learned. No, here's what I could have handled better. No awareness of her own patterns. This is what psychologists call a victim identity. And here's the uncomfortable truth. A woman who sees herself as the victim in every past relationship will eventually see you the same way. Because accountability doesn't suddenly appear when the right man shows up. Patterns repeat. Now listen to a different type of answer. We both avoided conflict. I didn't communicate my needs clearly. We weren't aligned in what we wanted long term. Do you feel the difference? She's not attacking. She's not blaming. She's reflecting. That doesn't mean she was wrong. It means she's aware. And awareness is the foundation of growth. Men often get this backwards. They think a woman criticizing her ex means she's being honest. They think a woman taking responsibility means she's minimizing what happened. But it's the opposite. Blame protects the ego. Accountability exposes the truth. And here's the pattern you need to understand. No accountability leads to repeated outcomes. Different man, same ending. And when that ending happens, she'll say the same things about you. Now let me tell you a short story. I once coached a man who ignored this exact signal. The woman he was dating described all 3 of her past relationships the same way. They all failed because the men couldn't step up. He felt special. He thought, I'll be different. 6 months later, after she lost interest, her final words to him were, "You just didn't show up the way I needed." Same script. New actor. Now here's where most men mess up. They hear these answers and immediately start justifying. She's been hurt. She just had bad luck. She hasn't met the right guy yet. But clarity requires discipline. You're not dating her potential. You're dating her patterns, and patterns don't lie. Now, before we move on, let me ask you something. As you're listening to this, have you ever heard an answer like this before and ignored it because you wanted things to work? If so, I want you to comment below which question hit hardest so far. Not for me, for you, because awareness is the first step toward self-respect. In the next part, we're going to talk about direction. Why a woman without direction doesn't look for partnership, she looks for provision. And why that difference changes everything. But we'll stop here. Review this part carefully, because if you get these first 2 questions wrong, everything after that becomes damage control. Now let's continue. Because this is where things start to get uncomfortable for a lot of men. Not because the questions are aggressive, but because the answers force you to see reality instead of potential. Question number 3. What are you building in your life right now? This question sounds casual, almost like small talk. But psychologically, it's one of the most revealing questions you can ask a woman, because it exposes direction. And direction tells you whether she's walking beside you or waiting for you to carry her. When a woman answers this question, listen for clarity. Some women respond with vague statements. I'm just enjoying life right now. I'm seeing where things go. I'm taking things day by day. I'm figuring myself out. Again, none of these phrases are inherently wrong, but here's what matters. Are they a temporary phase or a permanent lifestyle? Because there's a massive difference between a woman who is consciously recalibrating her life and a woman who is drifting, waiting for someone else to provide structure. A woman without direction doesn't consciously look for a provider. She looks for relief. Relief from uncertainty. Relief from responsibility. Relief from having to decide who she wants to become. And when you enter her life, you can accidentally become that relief. Not a partner, not a teammate, but an emotional and logistical anchor. Now contrast that with a different type of answer. A woman with direction might say, I'm focused on my career right now. I'm building stability for myself. I have clear goals and I'm working toward them. Notice something important. She's not asking you to complete her life. She's inviting you into it. And this is where a lot of men get confused. They think a woman with no direction is easier to please. She doesn't ask for much. she's flexible, she's low maintenance. But flexibility without direction turns into dependency. And dependency turns into resentment, because sooner or later, she'll feel lost again. And when she does, she'll unconsciously blame the person closest to her, which will be you. Here's the pattern you need to recognize. A woman with direction chooses a man. A woman without direction attaches to one. And attachment is not commitment. Now let's move to question number 4. This one exposes expectations. What do you expect from a man you're with? Most men get nervous asking this question. They're afraid of sounding insecure. They're afraid of triggering demands. They're afraid of hearing something they can't provide. But that fear is exactly why this question matters. Because expectations exist whether you ask or not. The question is whether they're conscious and whether they're balanced. Some women respond with a long list. He needs to be emotionally available. He needs to be ambitious. He needs to be confident. He needs to make me feel special. He needs to prioritize me. Again, none of these traits are wrong, but listen closely. Does she ever mention what she brings? Does she talk about how she supports a relationship, how she handles conflict, how she contributes emotionally, practically, or relationally? Or is the answer one-sided? Because one-sided expectations reveal entitlement, and entitlement is the fastest way to drain a man's energy. Now compare that to a different response. I expect honesty, and I give honesty. I expect effort, and I put effort in. I want consistency, and I show up consistently. Do you feel the shift? This is reciprocity. Not transactional, not scorekeeping, but an understanding that relationships are exchanges of value, not just emotion. And here's where men make a critical mistake. They hear high expectations and think, if I meet them, she'll commit. But expectations without self-awareness don't lead to loyalty. They lead to moving goalposts. Because when a woman hasn't examined her own contribution, no amount of effort will ever feel like enough. Let me give you a quick example. I once worked with a man who proudly met every expectation his girlfriend listed. He paid for everything. He was always available. He prioritized her above his own goals. And yet, she slowly lost respect for him. Why? Because unconsciously, she wasn't experiencing partnership. She was experiencing consumption. And consumption kills attraction over time. Now pause for a moment. Think back. Have you ever been with a woman who had clear demands but vague contributions? If so, you already know how this ends. And this brings us to an important reminder. These questions are not meant to corner her. They're meant to reveal structure. You're not interrogating, you're observing. Ask calmly, listen without attachment, and let the patterns speak. Now here's where suspense builds, because the 5th question ties everything together. Values, boundaries, direction. Expectations. And this next one is the most powerful of all. But before we go there, I want you to reflect. So far, we've uncovered how she defines relationships, how she handles responsibility, whether she has direction, how she views exchange and contribution. Most men never ask these questions. And when they don't, they fill in the blanks with hope. But hope is not a strategy. Clarity is. If you're getting value from this so far, take a second to like the video, not for the algorithm, but because it reminds you that clarity matters. And in the next part, we're going to expose something even deeper. Not her honesty, her boundaries. And when you understand this final question, you'll never again be confused about where you stand. We'll stop here, because if you don't fully absorb this part, the final insight won't land the way it should. Now we arrive at the most important question, the one that quietly reveals everything the others only hinted at. Question number 5. What would make you walk away from a relationship? This question isn't about fear. It's about boundaries. And boundaries tell you whether loyalty is conditional or principled. When a woman answers this question, listen for clarity. Some women respond by avoiding it altogether. I don't really think like that. I believe relationships should just flow. I'd rather not focus on negative things. On the surface, that sounds mature, positive, open-minded. But underneath, it often signals something dangerous, a lack of defined boundaries. Because people who haven't decided what they will walk away from haven't decided what they stand for. And when pressure arrives, temptation, conflict, boredom, they improvise. Improvised morals lead to unstable commitment. Now listen to another type of answer. I would walk away if there was repeated dishonesty. I would leave if there was disrespect or abuse. I won't stay in a relationship where trust is broken. Notice the difference. She's not emotional. She's not dramatic. She's clear. These are non-negotiables. And here's something men rarely understand. A woman with strong boundaries doesn't feel restricted by commitment. She feels safe in it because commitment is not about staying no matter what. It's about knowing exactly what no matter what means. Now let's talk about the twist. Here's the truth most men never realize. These questions don't expose her. They expose you. They reveal whether you are actually listening or just waiting for reassurance. Because most women tell you exactly who they are, not once, but repeatedly, in casual comments, in offhand remarks, in how they describe their past. Men ignore it when it doesn't match the fantasy. They hear what they want to hear. They filter out the inconvenient parts. And later, when reality hits, they say, she changed. No, she was consistent. You just weren't honest with yourself. Now let's address the mistakes men commonly make with these questions. Some men use them as tests. They ask with tension, with suspicion, with hidden agendas. They're not listening. They're evaluating. That energy alone pushes the right woman away and keeps the wrong one performing. Other men use the answers as justification to stay longer. They see red flags and say, maybe she'll grow. Maybe I can help. Maybe it's different with me. But here's the rule you need to live by. You don't date for potential. You date for patterns. Promises are cheap. Patterns are expensive. Now let's recap everything. The 5 questions. What does a healthy relationship look like to you? What ended your last serious relationship? What are you building in your life right now? What do you expect from a man you're with? What would make you walk away from a relationship? Each question reveals something critical. How she defines partnership. How she handles responsibility. Whether she has direction. How she views reciprocity. Where her boundaries actually are. And when you see the full picture, something powerful happens. You stop chasing clarity. You start choosing alignment. Now here's the core lesson. The right woman will not feel interrogated by these questions. She will feel understood. She will feel seen. Because emotionally healthy people don't fear clarity. The wrong woman, however, will feel exposed. Not because you accused her, but because she's never been asked to examine herself before. Now let's make this practical. Ask these questions early, not on the first date, not like a checklist, but early enough that you haven't overinvested. Listen to behavior more than words, watch what repeats, and when you see misalignment, walk away calmly, not angrily, not dramatically, with self-respect. Do not try to fix someone who doesn't share your values. That's not love. That's self-abandonment. And finally, remember this. Clarity does not kill romance. Confusion does. The man who asks better questions doesn't get used. He gets chosen. Or he walks away early, with his dignity intact. Now I want to hear from you. Comment below. Question, Stidony, hit hardest. Like this video if you've ever ignored an obvious answer because you wanted to believe. And subscribe if you'd rather see clearly than hope blindly. Because the strongest position a man can stand in is clarity.